Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Dota 2 commentary. This is Bebon, and this is the TI3 Western Qualifiers Game 1 between EG and Rox.KIS. This is the playoffs bracket of the TI3 Western Qualifiers, and I should be able to bring you all of the best of 3 series from this particular series. I have heard it is quite good. I know it might be a little bit dated, but hopefully you'll excuse that. Because they are a little bit dated, I'll probably be uploading maybe 2 casts of these a day rather than just the usual 1 cast a day, just to get through them so I can go to more recent tournament results or more recent tournaments, or maybe go to the Eastern Qualifiers. SK unfortunately was not able to join me for this particular cast, but hopefully he'll be able to do so in the next couple casts, or maybe not so much. Maybe I'll be able to bring Fried Rice Frog in from retirement, or maybe Lumi if he's not busy doing the Eastern Qualifiers, which are probably going on in the next 12 hours or so, so that's probably not going to be very likely. But I heard this is quite a good series. So EG versus Rox.KIS. EG looked extremely dominant in their groups. They managed to take in a clean sweep, not dropping any games. They had Q-Pad, they had Mouse, they had IC Cup. They did not lose any games. So they are going to be moving on to face Rox.KIS, who finished second place in their groups. But how it works in the playoff system is that if you qualify for the playoffs, which is the top 2 teams from each group move on to the playoffs, it's a full-on double elimination bracket once again. So both teams have 2 shots. The winner of the entire playoff series get a direct invite to TI3 to get a slot there, and the second place gets an invite to Seattle, where they have to play the runner-up or the second place finisher of the Eastern Qualifiers to try to get themselves a spot in TI3. And right now, this is a really interesting draft. But again, EG has been looking incredibly dominant. Rox.KIS have been looking quite powerful as well. They've really been getting into form. Even though they did lose to DD, they have placed to second place at the LAN EMS finals in Poland, taking game off of Navi. So they are definitely not to be underestimated. One thing, as always, that could play a bit of a factor is that Rox.KIS are from Russia and EG is from the Western side of America, so I imagine the ping differential can never really be solved, but still, never really want to make excuses for either team, as I'm sure both teams are probably suffering under the same ping pressures. But well, anyway, EG, really interesting opening, as they decided to ban out the clock as well as the Chaos Knight, and you can see that sort of played a bit into how they picked. They picked up Wisp as well as Sven, which is a combination we do not see very often, and what's really interesting that is EG picked up Sven with the first 3 picks, and Sven has never been seen past this, I guess, last winter, where he was very, very dominant, especially in conjunction with the Magnus. So Rox.KIS banning out the Magnus, really smart response, noticing that Magnus was still left in the pool, and the empowered Sven still does a lot of damage. So one of the reasons why Sven did fall off a little bit is because his cleave isn't as powerful, his Warcry isn't as good. He's still a very strong hero in my opinion, but it's just been a lot easier for teams to kite him, especially with very versatile, very mobile heroes. But if you pair it with something like a Wisp, you can still get a lot of effectiveness out of Sven. Now, Wisp is a very controversial hero. If you've ever listened to one of mine or SK's casts, you know that Wisp can be dealt with quite handily sometimes, but if you don't manage to get the execution off, then Wisp can just sort of take over the game. So it's always risky trying to plan against Wisp. You have to entirely change, or you have to change your entire game plan just to focus around this one hero. So that's why he's placed in such high regard in the Western scene. In the Eastern scene, they're not really worried about, because they're more focused on grouping as 5 when the time comes, or they're more focused on Tryline versus Tryline. But one of the best ways to deal with Wisp, of course, is to match up your Tryline against Wisp. Wisp is not the best Tryline hero, and if you limit his experience growth, you can sort of just manage to overcome his other spells, which are not really that effective in a Tryline situation. His orbs do hurt, his tether is quite annoying, but overall he's not really a reliable source of damage. Another thing is that once you reach the mid game, if you just group up, or if you pick heroes that can deal with Wisp ganks quite well, then you can just waste that ultimate for the most part. And Batrider, not really going to be grouping up, but he can go on the offensive to try to pick off the Wisp. Juggernaut can just Blade Fury teleport out of there if Wisp and Sven come to hunt him down. But Rox.KIS, for the most part, have not picked up the most mobile heroes. Barrier can escape when he gets a dagger, but Shouty can't really escape from Wisp gank. Rox.KIS looking to ban out a bunch of mid-solo heroes. They banned out the Magnus as well as the Night Stalker. And interesting that EG banned out Clockwork, but yeah, I said I was going to get back to this. Clockwork is just incredibly annoying to deal with. Rocket Flare, of course, gives you immense amounts of map control, not only in terms of giving you vision, but also pushing back the creeps all the time. So it's pretty difficult for a team to just push in. And when you have a Clockwork or when you're facing Clockwork as a Wisp, I imagine it's very, very difficult, because you get that cogs to zone people out, as well as the hookshot just stunning people for quite a long time. It's just really annoying to deal with clockwork for the most part as a Wisp player. And they banned out the Chaos Knight as well. Maybe just saying, alright, we don't want to deal with the Chaos Knight. Maybe they thought, alright, Rox.KIS might want to get the Chaos Knight, or might want to get the Wisp themselves, because Rox.KIS had the first choice, but Rox.KIS snatched up the Barrett, which is probably the most powerful hero in this version at the moment. At least it's considered by most people. But yeah, Rox.KIS pick up Barretter as well as Juggernaut and Shadow Demon, as you can see on your screen. Barretter, it'll be interesting to see what role he plays, as he can go mid. He wins mid in most situations. He can be beaten by certain mid heroes like Quap or Puck, but other than that, if he gets the fast blink dagger, he will be able to have a really immense impact on the game. And Rox.KIS, they picked up the Juggernaut as well, so they could potentially offlane it and just sack it, and just sack the Juggernaut. Sometimes you see in games, Juggernaut is just thrown to the wolves in the offlane, and he can survive quite admirably because he has that magical immunity in the form of the Blade Fairy. And the Juggernaut, if he is sort of thrown to the wolves in the offlane, starts out with a boost speed and just relies on his spin and his higher move speed just to get him out of trouble. But Rox.KIS could also go on the offensive with a Shouty and Juggernaut combination. Disruption into Blade Fairy could help set up a lot of damage against the EG Trillion, but EG do have less sustainability themselves, as I imagine this is going to be the EG Trillion, and this has a lot of tankability in the form of Sven, and they have a lot of range in the form of Keeper the Light, as well as a lot of maneuverability with the Wisp backing either of these two heroes up. And EG going to pick up the Puck, a really solid choice. I'm a bit surprised that Rox.KIS did not actually ban the Puck themselves, but I guess they have confidence in dealing with the Puck. But yeah, Puck vs Barretter, it should go pretty well for the Puck if that is actually the lane matchup, just because Puck can phase shift napalm stacks, but it is tricky to do under a huge ping differential, so that's not always guaranteed. Meanwhile, Rox.KIS picked up the Weaver, and Weaver is going to be really key. Again, one of the reasons why Sven has sort of faded out is because you can kite him because he has a long cooldown stun, and once his BKB is down, he just sort of, if you manage to get him hexed, then he just becomes relatively useless. And you can say that for a lot of heroes, but with Sven especially, since he's nothing like a Nyx who has that shorter rage cooldown in comparison to a Sven BKB or anything like that. And Sven just really relies a lot more on farm, but he still gets going a lot sooner than other DPS carries.
5 seconds remaining.
You know, Rox.KIS cementing their lineup with the Jakiro, so interesting choice, as this is a weird lineup of Rox.KIS. Usually when you pick up a Juggernaut, you want to emphasize pushing, because Healing Word is such a powerful ability, and a lot of people seem to think that Healing Word is the answer to heroes like Keeper the Light as well as Tinker, just because you can't always nuke down the wave instantly if you do have the Healing Word activated. And keep in mind, EG, since they had the second two picks, they picked up Wisp as well as Keeper the Light after the Barrier choice, so Juggernaut and Shadeen were the responses by Rox.KIS to these opening two choices. But they also picked up Jakiro, and Jakiro these days, he still can go for Liquid Fire to be a bit more aggressive, but he likes to go a bit more damaging-oriented build, more teamfight control, with the Ice Path as well as the Dual Path. Is EG going to snag up the Nature Swap for Sexy Bambo with their last choice, most likely? So it's going to be interesting to see how this game goes. EG has a lot of global presence, but Rox.KIS, I think they have the solid teamfight edge if they manage to shut down Puck. And Puck, as always in most of his games, is going to be the primary target of focus for both teams. If Puck manages to get a fast blink dagger, he can really just make Weaver's life a living hell, as Weaver won't be able to farm a Linken's because it's a 5k gold item really quickly, just because Blinken, of course, is cheaper, and Waning Rift just does not care about Linken Sphere because it's an AoE, it's a non-targeted ability, so Linken's won't debuff it. But yeah, if Puck manages to get a fast dagger, Weaver could potentially be in a lot of trouble, and if Puck gets a fast dagger, you can shut down heroes like the Shadow Demon, like the Jakiro, like the Weaver, even the Juggernaut to some extent. And if you manage to get that global ganking presence online, then Nature Spark can just start going to work with a split push. Sven and Wisp can just teleport around the map and just really seize up all the map control on the EG side of the field. But Rox.KIS, if they manage to get a sufficient, I mean, it's going to depend on the mid lane matchup if it is Barretter versus Puck. If Barretter manages to get his dagger faster, then you can just sort of eliminate Wisp or Sven from the picture, just really try to focus them down. And again, when it comes down to the late game, Weaver should theoretically outcarry Sven just because he's more maneuverable, and Sven's BKB timing will be drained by quite a bit. But still, it does take a long time for Weaver to build up his item slot just because he needs both survivability as well as damage. And Sven just really needs damage because he's naturally quite tanky with his Warcry giving him a lot of armor. And him being a strength hero, he just gets a lot of innate survivability from the extra HP of the strength growth. But yeah, just going to introduce the players and teams as I'm going to fast forward through the pause for the most part. BZZ is going to be playing the Juggernaut, Dread is playing the Weaver, Solo is playing the Barometer, Vadscore is playing the Shadow Demon, and Yol is playing the Jakiro. Me on the side of EG, we're going to have Fear playing the Sven, Jo is going to be playing the Wisp, Demon is playing the Puck, Bambo is playing Nature Spot, and Beat is playing Keep It Light. And it's interesting to see that Jo is playing the Wisp in this game, and this is something that EG does like to do. They like to put Jo on the Wisp and Fear back onto the hard carry, even though in their most recent performances, Fear has been playing the 4 role, which is the secondary support. But I guess Fear is just going back to his roots. He was the Sven player back when EG took second place at DreamHack, utilizing Sven very, very effectively. Of course, you've seen that little clip, Sven just getting an ultra kill on the back of one vacuum. You know, Sven could potentially do that, but he doesn't really have anything to help set him up. He only has Puck to sort of keep people in check. But yeah, Jo, for the most part, from what I've seen, has played a very, very successful Wisp. We'll see if he can do that this game as well. As Rox.KIS gonna go on the offensive, they do have the people in place to potentially challenge EG in a try. And again, Wisp is not the best try line hero. He can sort of hold his own, especially if he's on the defensive try line, just because he can get some pulls going. But if they sort of dive him, there's really not too much Wisp can do to escape other than just to tether away to safety. And Juggernaut and Weaver can just sort of dance circles around Sven regardless. So it looks like Rox.KIS are in fact going to go on the offensive just to try to shut down the Wisp, try to make him as irrelevant as possible. And even though they have some heroes that can escape the Wisp ganks, Shadow and Jakiro honestly can't. And even Barretter, once he gets, or before he gets the dagger, can be shut down by Wisp ganks. So it would be more prudent for Rox.KIS to actually go on the offensive, but it looks like Rox.KIS for the most part staying as 3. I thought these two supports might rotate to the model lane, but no, they're actually going to stay on the offensive. They're going to put Barrett on the bottom lane, and they're going to put Solo mid. Interesting. So I guess they're predicting Nature's Prophet in the off lane, and they just want to have Juggernaut get as easy a lane as possible, because for the most part, Nature's Prophet does zone out Juggernaut quite well, because Blade Fury does have a pretty high mana cost, and it does have cooldown in comparison to Nature's Prophet. And keep in mind the treants do get 25% spell reduction, so they are quite tanky. So Juggernaut gonna have an easier time against the Puck, but still, Puck should have an advantage. And Puck, predicting the Barometer in the mid lane, actually picked up the Magic Stick in order to counteract the sticky napalm. So Demon has to be feeling pretty pleased, but still, Juggernaut, it'll be interesting to see what he goes for, because usually in the offlane Juggernaut, he likes to go for the Aghanims, drums, and just try to tank up. But in this game, Juggernaut, since he probably will get a bit more farm, I wonder if he'll go a bit more DPS oriented. That could definitely be a possibility. You know, Barrett versus Nature's Prophet, this is completely one-sided in favor of Barrett. There's really not too much Nature's Prophet can do. If you get 1 or 2 stacks, then Barrett can just fly over you and just burn down all your trees, and that'll just really make Nature's Prophet very, very unhappy. You know, trees and fire, they're not exactly a match made in heaven. But you can see Bambo driving away Dread, noticing that he doesn't have any sticky napalm stacks on him just yet. Gonna be more than happy to harass Dread back, but once Dread picks up something like a bottle, or even something like a Ring of Protection to build into Triangle Boots, Dread should have the advantage, as he's taking a lot of damage from Bambo, really not too afraid of burning himself. He knows the bottle will be on his way relatively soon, but the treants just throwing down a lot of harassment. Gonna usher Dread back, and the salve will get cancelled, the napalm being applied, gonna slow down the treant assault, but Bambo handling this lane very, very well for the most part. But it's going to get more and more difficult as Sticky Napalm gets leveled up. And once Barrett picks up a point in Flame Break, it's going to be really, really difficult for Nature's Prophet to escape, because then you have a reliable way to cancel the teleportation. So it might be more prudent for Dread to actually pick up a fast move speed and then start going for aggressive Sticky Napalm stacks. But Bambo, you can see what he's doing. He's trying to zone out Dread as much as possible with the treants when he knows Dread is at his weakest, which is when Barrett is at the early stages of those levels. As meanwhile, Weaver on the top lane getting driven back since Xiaodian did decide to go for the rune. You can see Solo has already picked up his bottle. Demon, I imagine, has his bottle as well. Yes, he is bottle crowing already, and this is how the mid lane matchup should go. I don't imagine Puck can actually kill Juggernaut, because if you do the Dream Coil, then, you know, Juggernaut can just Blade Fury out of it. But if Puck manages to get a silence off at any point, then Juggernaut should theoretically die once Puck does manage to hit that level 6. So If there is going to be action, it's going to be on this top lane. Now this top lane matchup, even though Wiz is not the strongest in a trial lane scenario, Keeper is so strong in a trial lane versus trial lane just because Illuminate does such a ridiculous amount of damage that it makes up for the Wiz shortcomings in my opinion. As Barrett does manage to pick off Bambo on the bottom lane, I'm just going to rewind because this is replay and I can do that. As Bambo took 5 stacks and a flame break, and that really means Bambo could not escape. You can see Bambo trying to teleport out, but the damage was just too much. Managed to pick off the or Barrett managed to pick off the Nature's Prophet, and Barrett is going to be well on his way towards getting his dagger. And again, this is such a hard lane for the Nature's Prophet. It really should not be lost by Barrett in any circumstance. And you can see Dread playing this matchup as well as he possibly can. And now that Sticky Napalm is level 3, then Bambo is going to have to be even more careful. It's going to be pretty ridiculous, as both Barrett as well as the Juggernaut are going to do a lot of bottle curling in this lane. So that courier going to have to be on overtime, and it doesn't even get paid. Poor courier. But meanwhile, back to this top lane. Keeper is such a strong force in defense of Tron because his Illuminate has such a large AoE as well as does such a huge amount of damage as Bambo. Once again, taking a lot of S and Dread. No bottle, so he's going to have to be a bit careful. The Flame Break driving Bambo back, and Bambo has a full stock of magic stick charges, so Dread going to have to be a bit careful. But you can see Dread still not too afraid since he does have the boot speed, and he knows that Bambo doesn't. But Dread now knowing that, alright, I don't have too many napalm stacks left, I'm just going to play a bit more conservatively as Demon does manage to snag the invisibility rune right from underneath Solo's nose. Even without the bottle, he does decide to pick up the rune, so Solo not going to be too happy, but overall he's doing quite a nice job as he's just going to Blade Fury away the illusory orb damage and going to be very well content as he is handling this lane pretty well for the most part. A melee hero against Puck should not be that good of a matchup for the most melee heroes, but Juggernaut seems to be handling his own. And meanwhile, Weaver really can't get too much done this round. He did manage to get 19 CS in comparison to defense 9. So even though Kimberlite is just a really strong force in a tri-lane, you are still paired with the Wisp, who really can't do too much, and Sven is a melee hero against a triple range tri-lane. And you do have a setup in the form of Disruption as well as Ice Path, so Sven does have to watch his positioning because there are a lot of ways to lock him down for quite a big amount of time. As Dread once again going to fly over Bambo, Bambo actually being surrounded by his treants and actually going to fall. You see he was so afraid to cast his teleport because of the threat of Flame Break, but meanwhile on the top lane, Fear going to initiate, got the Stormbolt onto the Weaver. Here comes the Gumi, going to do a lot of damage. They have detection. No! Looks like the Weaver will be able to Shikuchion out of there as there is going to be a pause right when there is no action. So they waited till the action is over and then they paused. I guess EG can't really be too miffed about that. But really sensational job by the Baron in this bottom lane, and fortunate escape from that terrible situation by the Weaver. If Ichi just had a little bit of detection, I think they would have been able to clean up the kill. And you can see the Keeper Light does have a Sentry Ward, but I guess his first Sentry Ward timed out, or used it to D-Ward or something. But yeah, so far this game is going very well for Rox.KIS. They have a Weaver who's vastly outfronting Sven. They have a Barrett who's making his way to a very fast stagger. And you can see Barrett already with his boots as well as his bottle and working towards his magic wand. Once he finishes that, at this rate he should have maybe a 10-minute dagger if he does decide to finish the magic wand. If he doesn't, then he might be able to get like a 9 or an 8.5-minute dagger at this rate. And Bambo, there's really nothing he can do to get himself back into this lane, especially now that Barrett is level 6, now that he has the lasso. Bambo can really not hope to escape. His only hope is that Barrett just does not have enough mana to cast both the lasso as well as Flame Break. But even then, that might be a little bit too much to hope for. So a lot of pressure is going to have to be on Demon because he is going to have to make a lot of things happen. I think in this game, it might be more prudent for Demon to actually just pick up a really fast dagger rather than go for something like a Treads. But even then, a fast dagger will take quite a bit of time to farm up to. So if Barrett managed to get his dagger before the Puck, then Puck could potentially be in a lot of trouble from Barrett or lasso ganks. So right now, things are looking very good for Rox.KIS. One thing that is a bit concerning is that Wisp is level 3 and the Shadow Demon is level 2, so the supports on Rox.KIS are being owled, but not by the biggest of margins. At this point, it's really not too much to write home about, especially since EG are just pulling relentlessly. And Dread sees Bambo teleport back in. Bambo is just like, don't kill me anymore, please. But I think he should be safe for now, because Dread does not have enough mana to cast both multiple stacks of napalm as well as the flaming lasso. As just gonna go back in time, Demon gonna find Soul with the Dream Coil, and Soul will just get silenced. Soul actually didn't had his Blade Fury on cooldown, so nice timing by Demon, picking up that kill and trying to win the lane, and that's really what it's going to come down to EG. If Demon gets off to a good start, then he can get his team back in the game. Because EG, I don't think they have the best late game lineup. Of course, they do have Sven, who's definitely very powerful, especially since picks up something like a Daedalus or anything like that. If he managed to get Monster Crit, that could be very, very good. Of course, Bambo will definitely have a better time as the game goes on, just because Nature's Prophet is such a powerful split pusher. But still, against a Weaver as well as a Barrier Initiation, I do have to favor Rox.KIS slightly.
Tower is under attack.
But meanwhile, BZZ picked up the Ring of Health. He is going to go for the Lincoln Sphere. Lincoln Sphere, of course, is going to be very, very useful against anything like a lot of EG spells, whether it be Stormbolt or Mana Leak, anything like that. Mana Leak is still a very, very powerful spell against Weaver, but it has such a low cooldown that Lincoln Sphere often does not matter. And you can see how far back Bambo is playing because he knows that Dread does have a sufficient amount of mana to just dive him. So Bambo just going to stay as far back as possible. It might be more prudent for Bambo just to actually go to the jungle, because even though he might be picking up a few CS here and there from the back of his trees, he's not getting any experience, and Nature's probably desperately wants that experience. You can see Bambo only with a Ring of Basilius as well as a Magic Stick. He's gonna, if he does go for Midas, he'll probably get it around 12, maybe 13 minutes in. And it's gonna be such a delayed Midas that the effect will really only count in the later stages of the game. And actually, if I think about it, I think the late game actually evens up. It might be a bit more favorable for EG than I made it out to be, just because they have Sven, and Sven is such an unpredictable here in the late game. But as Demon gonna get initiated on, here comes the Soul Catcher, but Demon does manage to get the phase shift off to dodge the initial stun, as Demon gonna be able to orb one way but just decides to walk out the other direction. Solo trying to get in range for the Omni Slash, gonna be a little bit hard pressed to find the perfect angle, as meanwhile BZZ on the top lane gonna get engaged upon Fear. Already Stormball, BZZ gonna be driven away, trying to retreat to the fog, will retreat successfully, but now EG have BZZ penned up in a corner. Unfortunately for EG, they don't have any detection. This is a Rox.KIS center road, so BZZ can potentially just run back, and there's really not too much EG can do to stop him. Meanwhile, Firefly being casted once again. You can see the fear has been put into Bambo. Sorry, Bambo not picking up the magical wand, but meanwhile, Yoel gonna get storm bolted on the top lane. Defensive disruption could delay the assault, but Wisp, one last auto attack, will pick up the kill, as Weaver does manage to kill off the Wisp in exchange. Fear gonna take all damage, but looks like Weaver won't be able to pick up the last hit. I think he's out of mana. He is actually out of mana, so he can't pursue the issue. So 1-for-1 trade, as they traded Jakiro for a Wisp. Definitely not the worst trade for Rox.KIS, but definitely not the best trade either. It went even for the most part. Both supports died, and both the carries did manage to get the last hit. Although Weaver got the last hit on the Wisp, whereas the Wisp got the last hit on the Jakiro. Meanwhile, Bambo is just like, screw this, picked up boots, going to jungle, doesn't even matter. And I don't know. It's going to be very, very difficult for Bambo to have any sort of impact until around the 20-minute mark. And usually, Nature's Prophet does have a very, very difficult time in terms of making impact in the early stages of the game, unless his team goes for a very, very aggressive pushing strategy. But especially without any hopes of getting a Midas with the 2 deaths under his belt, his rate of farm is just going to be severely delayed. And meanwhile, Dread, able to get a bit more map control, able to pick up a kill on the top lane, securing kill on Keeper Light. Well, Dread didn't really do anything. It was pretty much all the way, but you can see Dread is actually the highest level in the game. Meanwhile, Juggernaut does get killed on the middle lane by Demon as well as Bambo. Bambo making things happen with his Wrath of Nature, able to secure a kill on the Juggernaut. So Juggernaut has died twice, but I feel like in the overall grand scheme of things, Juggernaut doesn't really need as many items in comparison to Nature's Prophet, because his spells always are pretty good. Meanwhile, Nature's Prophet really just needs to get the maximum efficiency out of his teleport, and to do that, you need to have really, really good items. Especially the way Juggernaut's built. He's built more as a utility semi-carry with the Aghanim Scepter and just a lot of emphasis on the healing word and just doing a lot of early game DPS. But still, this is quite hurtful to Soul, because not only is he losing a lot of experience, he's giving Demon a lot of gold, and Demon is making his way towards the dagger, but meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, Barrier is making his way towards his dagger as well, as he decided to finish the Tranquils as well as the wand, so his dagger is going to be a bit delayed, but by the time he gets it, he might very well be at level 11, where his lasso cooldown will be reduced. Meanwhile, Beat is roaming to the middle lane, trying to prevent any sort of ganks coming in, as Nature's Prophet just gonna jungle in the bottom lane, knows that his woods are a bit exposed, as EG gonna actually switch up their trying. They're gonna put Fear on the bottom lane now, 10 minutes into the game, saying, okay, now we know Barrett will probably go to gank the top lane where there's a lot of allies there. We'll just go to the bottom lane and try to get Fear as much experience as possible. And Fear is hurting in terms of farm. You can see he's being out-farmed with the Weaver quite a bit. Or he was being out-farmed quite a bit. Now it's sort of evened up.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
As the Illuminate gonna fly in, we'll see if Demon times a Dream Coil with that. No, the Illuminate just manages to hit. Soul gonna pop the Healing Ward. Demon, he's gonna try to pick off the Healing Ward. He gets a Dream Coil. Soul gonna have to break it, but while he does so, he will get away from the Healing Ward AoE. Beat is looking to snipe out the ward. Does do so successfully, but is gonna get trapped by the tower. As Soul gonna bottle up. He's not gonna use the Omni Slash just yet. Demon gonna pop the orb once again. He's gonna use his haste rune. He's gonna go for the dive, but decides better against it. He knows he would have died, especially since the orb was dead. He knows he could have potentially got Omni Slash, so Beatus poked his head out a bit far, got a bit too greedy in terms of killing off the ward, and a really well placed Ice Path by the Jakiro, and Beatus had no idea that Jakiro was there, but you can see Demon wrapping around, trying to make the best usage of the haste rune, but his haste rune is timing out relatively soon. The lasso is going to be used on the puck. Here comes the Omni Slash as well. Demon is going to die, and Dread picks up a killing spree, and he's only 100 gold away from his dagger. Meal on the top lane, nothing is going to happen. But Dread, he's going to pick up level 11 and his dagger at the same time, and this is such a dangerous position for EG. Because usually, Barrett, when he gets a fast dagger, you don't really have to worry about that shorter cooldown on the lasso. You still have 90 seconds to in between lasso ganks, but now you have 70 seconds, and 20 seconds is quite a big difference, as now you have to worry about it almost once every minute, in comparison to once every minute and a half. So EG definitely not looking in the best shape, and Puck dying. He was previously playing the lane very well, but just a moment's notice of aggression trying to pick up a kill on a Juggernaut did cost him his life, and that is going to delay his own dagger, as Barrett did manage to pick up his dagger. He's going to have to go back to base, but his lasso will be up in about 30 seconds, and EG, it might just be more prudent for them to farm. And again, I might have underestimated EG's late game potential. They have Sven, they have Furion, they have a lot of late game potential, so I definitely underestimated that regard, but still, I mean, it's a bit iffy because you are facing up against a Batter's Initiation and a Weaver who can potentially just do a lot of late game DPS if he has not been killed, and this Weaver has not been killed just yet. Interesting that Weaver decided to pick up the Strength Treads. He wants a little bit extra HP to work with, as Weaver really does not get too much HP these days with his builds unless he goes for the Ultimate Orb first, but Ultimate Orb is quite expensive, and he's just going to pick up the treads to give him a bit more survivability, and every bit of survivability when you have a spell like Time Lapse and Chikuchi does count, especially with Weaver's very low HP pool. As Soul did pick up the drums, we'll see if that's going to spark a push on the middle lane, as Dread, smoked up, does have a dagger. I don't know if EG did manage to see him with that ward, or if Dread did smoke up behind the vision of the ward. But either way, Dread will be able to escape the notice of EG for the time. But I think EG do suspect something's up. They don't see Dread on the map, and they're just playing super defensively. You can see how far back EG is playing. They're just using Keeper Light to just spam Illuminate. And Keeper Light getting a bit more farm. I imagine Keeper Light is going to be the mechanism carrier, as Jo looking to teleport in. Here is going to be an engagement as the Juggernaut going to get the Omni Slash. Does manage to pick up Jo. A two-man stun going to cover Fear's retreat, as Dread has already used his lasso. The lasso in conjunction with the Omni Slash immediately killed off the Wisp, and really good TP reactions by the side of Rox.KIS managed to secure themselves a kill. And the ward will help to fuel the push. I don't know if EG can actually defend this push, as Jakiro does manage to get picked off on the top lane by Beatas as well as Bambo, but without Beatas there to defend the middle lane, this middle tier 1 tower will most definitely fall, especially with the Healing Ward, although the Healing Ward at this point has died. So Rox.KIS is going to claim the first tower of the game, the middle tower, which is very important in terms of map control. As you can see, Barra going to teleport in front, really not too afraid of a Keeper Light or the Bambo, because, I mean, what can Bambo do to a Barra at this stage? And Bambo did in fact go for the Midas. I think he picked it up maybe a bit sooner, maybe 11 minutes in the game, which is, you know, not the worst timing. And the fact that Bambo has not died recently means that he still can have an impact, although it will be minimal until the 20-minute mark. You can see his biggest impact is just from teleporting in and right-clicking once or twice, or using the Wrath of Nature just to apply a bit of extra right-click damage. But when Barrett has his dagger, Nature's Power really can't hope to split push around the map with only a Midas. He needs a Shadow Blade, or he needs a bit more survivability. He needs an Orchid or a Hex, and then he might be able to split push a bit more without fear. Speaking of fear, the Sven is actually going to go for a BKB. BKB in this game, probably going to be quite strong, but one of the problems with Sven, of course, is that he can be kited, and there are definitely mechanisms to kiting around Sven in this game. You have Lasso, you have Purge that goes through BKB, and that will just make Sven's life a living hell in terms of catching up to heroes like a Weaver, or defensively disrupted hero. But other than Weaver, there's not too much mobility on the side of Rox.KIS, and that's a bit surprising considering that EG did pick up Sven in the first phase. So Rox.KIS, not the best mechanisms in terms of escaping Sven right clicks, but still, they did pick up Weaver as well as Jakiro in the second phase, so they did get one answer to the Sven. Weaver trying to make his way towards the Lincoln Sphere as Illuminate gonna fly in. And Weaver farming quite well at this point, and Bambo just trying not to die, just trying to get whatever items he possibly can. Probably going to go for a Shadow Blade, I think, or maybe an Orchid. Orchid will be very, very good against Weaver as Demon Gun Initiate going to catch out BZ off guard with that dagger, but the damage just was not there. The Ice Path allowing Weaver to survive. Really, really good play by Yol as Demon now caught in a very, very awkward position. I think Demon will be able to escape. I think Rox.KIS think Demon has teleported out of there, and Rox.KIS looking to push in. They have the Healing Word online, but Vita is already in position, going to channel the Illuminate. It does not hit too many creeps, so Rox.KIS can still potentially push down this tower's Barrier, flying all the while overhead, and looks like EG just going to give this tier 1 tower. They're going to go for the tier 1 trade mid instead. Overall, I mean, Rox.KIS probably going to be pretty satisfied with this trade, especially if they can get back to defend this, which it looks like they are trying to do just that, but I think EG's damage output is just a bit too much. Fear at this point with level 1's God Strength is still doing quite a boatload of damage as EG gonna pop a defensive smoke just trying to escape, and it looks like it will work. Barrier was not able to get there just in time. Although Mambo being chased, he's gonna try to teleport out, but he's gonna get Flame Break, he's gonna get lassoed, and Mambo just a little bit too slow. I don't know why he didn't run back with his team, but he ran back towards the jungle. I don't know. Bit of a questionable play by Bambo, but hopefully it doesn't come back to bite him in the ass. But at the very least, Bambo has been able to pick up the Shadow Element, so he's going to go for the Shadow Blade. And again, the two item choices were Shadow Blade to sort of split push, or Orchid to try to shut down the Weaver. And I think at this point, EG knows that they're not as strong as Rox.KIS at this point. They need to try to stall out the game, and the best way to do that with the Nature's Prophet is just a split push. And if you've seen the last game, you know Nature's Prophet is just ridiculously good at doing just that. He is a monster at split pushing. Rox.KIS trying to lay siege to the tier 2, getting disrupted by the Blinding Light, but the Horde healing them up all the while. And you can see EG pressuring the tier 2 bottom as well. This tier 2 mid is quite important, but you can see the Healing Word just keeping the HP pools on the side of Rox.KIS high enough that they were able to do a significant chunk of damage. But EG gonna pick up a tier 2 for free in exchange for just a little bit of damage. They're able to pick up a tier 1 as well, and Fear is trying to immediately escape Barrier, trying to get in position, but he does not have too much mana to work with. I don't know if he can blink in and get the lasso, and Fear is able to escape, so that trade went phenomenally well for EG. They picked off a tier 2 bottom as well as a tier 1 top, and Rox.KIS were not able to claim the tier 2 mid. The tier 2 mid is not even in deny range. You can see the power of Keep the Light on the defensive, just super good, and this is why I think Juggernaut honestly does not counter Keep the Light. Healing Word just is not enough because the Illuminate at a certain level just bursts down all of the creeps. Or most of the creeps at the very least. And even if it doesn't, if you have one more nuke, Healing Word won't really heal up as much. So one extra nuke as well as the Illuminate will just be more than enough. As Keep the Light gonna have the mechanism up, so now EG could potentially look for a fight. Rox.KIS, do they have a mechanism up just yet? They do not, and that's a bit concerning. That means EG can potentially look for an engagement, and at this point, Weaver is definitely not very strong. He's still very squishy. He does not have any plus damage, and meanwhile, Fear has his finished BKB, mechanism's finished, and EG is looking incredibly dangerous. Bambo has finished his Shadow Blade as well, so now Bambo could potentially apply a bit of pressure to the bottom lane in order to expose Rox's Demon. Looking to snipe the courier, just gets one auto attack and just gonna blink out to safety. Or does he get recalled? No, he just blinked out and teleported away, I think. No, he did get recalled. You know, Fear doing some old DreamHack 2012 tactics, gonna clear out a stack. I think Fear is going to go for Mask of Madness rather than a Satanic. Mask of Madness is preferred on Sven because he wants that extra attack speed. And BKB is pretty much all the tank ability Sven needs because he is naturally tank on the back of his Warcry, as well as the magic immunity that BKB does provide. Meanwhile, Barra going to go for his own BKB, and there is nothing outside of EG that goes through BKB, so BKB might be the name of the game. Weaver not going to go for a BKB unless he really needs it, and even then he probably won't pick it up until he gets 1 or 2 damage items. You know, Solo has an Ogre Club. This might be for a BKB. Most probably will be for an Aghanims because Juggernaut already has his built-in magic immunity on the back of Blade Fairy, and Aghanims will just give you a couple more slashes and a lot of tank abilities, so Juggernaut can theoretically survive a lot of engagements. But BKB will again be very, very useful because, again, nothing on side of EG does go through BKB. And Rox.KIS, knowing that the Creepy Golem is pushed far enough that EG can't pressure any more towers, they're just going to group up as 5 and try to get the mid tower at the very least. But you can see Beat is there on the defense, as well as Demon going to orb out, and you can see the Wrath of Nature, the Illuminate, and the Illusory Orb just going to clean up that tower very, very easily. The Glyph is going to be popped as well, and now Rox.KIS going to face some backdoor protection as well as some blinding lights. They're trying to get the last hit. Juggernaut's going to spin off the blinding light and picks up the last hit because it can attack buildings, or you can attack while you're using your Blade Fairy, keep in mind. So Rox.KIS get a tier 2, but EG surprisingly have the tower advantage, especially against a Juggernaut. But it makes sense because EG have been able to play a bit more cautiously, they've been able to play a bit more globally, and they're able to get the defense going a bit more easily because they have Keeper Light. And Rox.KIS, in order to make the best usage of Juggernaut's Healing Word, they have to sort of group up as 5.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
And one of the underrated things about Wisp is even though you can sort of deal with Relocate as well as Tether or deal with Wisp in lane, one of the best things about Wisp is he can sort of play like a mini Spectre. And that is to say, you can fight or you can farm wherever you want, and then when there's a fight breaking out, you can just immediately teleport your carry in and just get him to the fight ASAP. And you can see EG just farming up with the Sven. They know if the fight does break out, Wisp is just going to follow Sven around and teleport to them fight if Sven needs to fight. But Weaver has the Linkage here. We'll see what he goes for next. Could be something like a Manta. MKB could be a good item as well, but it is difficult to say just yet what he will go for. But at this point, Weaver desperately needs damage. You can see Sven just so tanky and does so much damage on his own part that Weaver really needs to keep up in some shape or form. And Nature's Prophet with the finished Shadow Blade, I think he's going to go for a Hex. Might go for something like an Orchid. I think it's going to be Hex. He has enough physical damage in the form of Sven that you don't really need to have Nature's Prophet doing the bulk of the damage on side of EG. Although Desolator could be potentially very useful as there might be an engagement on the top lane. No, just a lot of teleports trying to defend the push from Demon. Meanwhile, Demon going to go for his own Hex. And anybody in Rox.KIS finish their BKB? No. Barrow getting close. He's going to have it in about 600 gold, as there is going to be Relocate getting advanced score. Just taking one look at that dot, going to say, nah, I'm going to back off. Really good defensive disruption as Ice Path as well the Omni Slash do manage hit. What a play by Rox.KIS. That disruption was clutch as hell. He dodged it while the Stormbolt was in mid animation. The Ice Path lining up perfectly as EG had nowhere to run in this little choke, and then the Omni Slash just sliced and diced EG to death. And now Rox.KIS trying to pick off the Roshan, and I think they will be successful in doing so. They are going to use the Healing Word, and Sven gotta be a bit miffed. At the very least, he did not use his 10-second BKB. But that is the lone bright spot in that very dismal engagement for EG. Meanwhile, we'll see if Bambo can snipe the Aegis. That is something that Bambo is well known to do. Blinding Light gonna push out Rox.KIS from taking are doing enough damage to Roshan from killing it off, and now EG has fully respawned, and Rox.KIS, their healing ward is down, so now they have to play very, very carefully. Dread gonna get loose here, Puck gonna blink right into Ice Path, and now Puck is taking a lot of edge. He's gonna pop the Dream Coil, but not, or he does die regardless. And meanwhile, Juggernaut just gonna teleport on out of there. Nature's Prophet, Wrath of Nature doing a lot of damage. Does manage to pick off 2 kills by himself. Wisp kills off the Weaver as well, as Juggernaut is gonna buy back. They desperately want to contest this Roshan. Weaver gonna buy back as well. But this Roshan, I think, will fall. Fear is at full HP as well as full mana, and he has a Mask of Madness. I think he can clear out his Roshan relatively quickly. He's gonna pop his ultimate, and I don't think Rox.KIS will be able to defend this Roshan quickly enough. So a bit of overestimation of the killing potential, or of their damage output for Rox.KIS, but you can see Beat is just playing that really, really cleverly, just casting Blind Light, delaying the damage output of Rox.KIS as long as possible, casting Illuminate, draining the HP of Rox.KIS when the healing ward is down, and when Rox.KIS had to fight the engagement, they fought it at around half HP, and they had no ward to back up their DPS. And also important for EG is that they forced a couple buybacks, and that buyback is largely not going to do too much for Rox.KIS. Weaver really is a very gold dependent hero, and that's why he's sort of not the best hard carry, because he just needs so many items in order to do enough damage or get enough survivability to sort of make him last in a fight, that it oftentimes is not worth it. But still, Rox.KIS do have a very solid initiation in the form of Batter. They still have Weaver, who does, if he does manage to get his items going, he will be incredibly annoying to deal with, and he can potentially outcarry Sven as well as the Nature's Prophet. But the buyback on both the Juggernaut as well as the Weaver, both of the semi-carries, is definitely going to hurt Rox.KIS, as Juggernaut went to the Aghanim Scepter, and I guess Juggernaut decided to get a bit tankier, get those extra slashes of the Omni Slash. And he's just going to say, I'm going to rely on my Blade here to dodge any spells that I need to do. So, we'll see if that actually works. Meanwhile, Bambo gonna go for a Scythe of Ice. He probably will have it relatively soon. Chrysalis has been picked up by Sven, and Jo is just constantly following his Bespero around. Has their own shadows as well as strength treads. No bottle, but I guess bottle was not really of the utmost priority for the Wisp. And you can see Weaver, his space to farm is starting to be a bit limited, and now EG's map control can start being truly scary. And this is the point in game where Wisp really is very, very dangerous, because he sort of forces you to group up as 5 when you're on the disadvantage in terms of map control. And when you group up as 5, you're definitely losing out in terms of experience, as PZZ gonna Shikuchi away. Even though he did have the Lincoln Sphere, just gonna dodge the engagement entirely. He did not know if there was anybody there like Demon there to back him up, but Demon has revealed himself in the middle lane. Meanwhile, Rox.KIS trying to mount pressure on the bottom lane. Keeper Light is already in position, gonna cast Illuminate and can potentially recall somebody in, but Beat is gonna get snagged. He will get lassoed in, but they do not drag him into the Ice Path, so Beatiz might be able to escape. One more right click won't spell the end of Beatiz. Meanwhile, the relocate has been popped by the Wisp. They're gonna kill off Vanscore, who tried to teleport out, but unfortunately he was just a little bit too late, as EG gonna once again defend their tower. Meanwhile, on the top lane, Wisp is gonna get killed on the return of his relocate, but it's gonna be a Whisper shout in. But more important for EG, they defend their tier 1. So I think EG gotta be feeling pretty happy. Although, for the most part, it was an even trade. What was a bit annoying for Rox.KIS is that they used their 10-second BKB, and I think EG did see the gem up on the Barrier. So now I think EG will probably have it in their sights to just focus down the Barrier at all costs. And if they manage to get a gem, that will just be really, really detrimental to not only the warding of Rox.KIS, but also to the Weaver. And you can see EG not placing any wards. Interesting. I guess the gem de-warded all of EG's wards, so that might be it. But Demon, since Puck is such a survivable hero, really not too afraid of farming Rox.KIS' jungle. And that is going to help out Demon's farm by quite a bit. He's working his way towards Hex. Bambo working his way towards Zone Hex. He will have it up relatively soon. And once Double Hex has been finished, it's got to be a bit worrying, because Linketeer will disable one Hex, sure, but it can't disable another Storm Bolt, it can't disable a second Hex, and there's still Blinding Light as well as, you know, Tether Stun to worry about. Meanwhile, EG looks like they're very content just to take this Aegis and farm with it. They're not going to look to make any openings on the back of this Aegis. They know right now they're in a pretty good position, even though Rox.KIS do have a slight kill advantage. And you can see the gold graph and the experience graph definitely going in favor of Dire, so EG playing pretty solidly for the most part. Levels, the supports on the side of Rox.KIS are underleveled, but honestly, that won't really make the biggest of differences in the next engagement, as once again Rox.KIS trying to use the power of the healing word to go to work on this tier 1 tower, and you can see at this point the creeps have sufficient of HP that they can survive Illuminate Burst, but Weaver trying to go to work on this tower as well, going to pop the Storm, giving him a bit more scouting information, as they are going to be able to clean up this tier 1 tower on the bottom lane. And now we'll see what Juggernaut decides to go for. He is going to go for something like an AC, and that is going to really help out the DPS on towers as well as heroes. Marauder, knowing that EG was close by, Bambo could be in a bit of trouble as he is going to get spotted. Marauder does have the gem, but Bambo able to get out quickly enough, and Marauder did decide to go for the BKB rather than a 4-staff, so he had no chance of catching Bambo and decides just to farm up Bambo's treants. Meanwhile, Weaver been able to get back some of his farm. Checking out the last hits, you can see side of EG, for the most part, it looks like farm is pretty much even, although EG does have a slight edge because Puck is out farming his Barretter by a decent amount. But the more telling graph will be net worth, and you can see the 2 carries on the side of EG have a 2k net worth advantage over the carries on the side of Rox.KIS. 2k is not the biggest difference, but still, you know, that's an ultimate orb. That is drums. That is a decent amount. Definitely nothing to take lightly, and that is going to give Fear his Daedalus. And now Sven is going to become a really, really terrifying creature. You know, Rox.KIS is going to be forced to smoke up. This is a pretty well-timed smoke. They know Roshan's down, and they know this is the prime opportunity to look for a fight because Roshan has just expired, and maybe EG has not yet noticed it. They're going to smoke up, and also, the creeps are pushed out that it's not really that suspicious if Rox.KIS are missing off the map. Although it is a 5-man smoke and EG are just saying, alright, where is everybody? I think somebody would probably be on the bottom lane farming it up. And Rox.KIS, their smoke largely did not go to good use, but they're going to get a bit of map control. They prevent EG from farming up. Smoke, usually you have to get some kill, but even if you just limit some of the golden experience, it's not worth it, but it's a Pyrrhic victory, I guess. Meanwhile, Demon, does he have his hex? He does, and he has a gem of his own. Nature's Father fish his own hex, and with these double hexes, looks like EG is itching for a fight.
Uproot and after them.
You know, BZZ banking up a lot of gold for buyback, as he knows that buyback is going to be more important damage at this point, but Manic as well as the Hex going to be used on BZZ. Nitro's probably trying to do as much right click as possible. They are able to kill off the Weaver with a sufficient amount of DPS. They kill off the Jakiro as well on the back of the Wisp Real gank. Vadscore going to juke into the fog. Unfortunately, Damon is able to clean him up, and EG looking so powerful. I wonder how they dispelled the Lincolns. Does Manleak go through the Lincolns and still activate? Because the Manleak effect was still on the Weaver. I don't know, but either way, Weaver definitely not going to be too pleased. He does have the buyback, but he definitely does not want to have to use it, although he might be forced to do just that, although, I don't know, it's tricky defending without Jakiro. Meanwhile, Solo going to go in, trying to isolate Jail, but the Omni Slash just bounces a little bit too unluckily for Solo, as Barretter, most of his BKB has already been used up as Dread. His 9-second BKB has gone to waste as well, and Rox.KIS is starting to crumble a bit under the pressure of EG. So EG, they forced it back from Weaver, and they survived the Omni Slash, and they forced out the 9-second BKB on the Barretter. So EG definitely got to be feeling pretty happy on how that engagement went. And Fear still has a 9-second BKB charge of his own. And once again, BC forced to use a lot of his gold just to buy back, and he's got to, at this point, he just does not care about he's got to disregard buyback entirely. Even when buyback cooldown is up, I think he just go for straight DPS, because now Fear is going to have a solid 2-item advantage, as there is going to be teleport onto the bottom lane. They're going to find Soul, they're going to kill Soul, and Soul never stood a chance. The DPS by a god strength Rogue Knight, aka Sven, is just too much, as Dread looking to get back into the fight, but he did not know that Ichi was still there. Demon looking to get the initiation through a Hex, but Dread able to blink on out of there, and Ichi looking to push in, but God Strength will be timing out relatively soon, and you can see Sen is just a blue knight now rather than just an angry red knight, so they are going to be fighting without the God Strength, although it looks like Ichi, without the Juggernaut's Healing Word, they're not too afraid of forcing the issue. And Weaver gonna get hexed up. If BZZ dies once again, defensive disruption gonna be used onto the Weaver, but the Dream Claw as well as Silence gonna do a immense amount of DPS, and you can see that Silence just owning the Weaver's soul. Soul will be able to kill off the Wisp, but keep in mind he did have to buy back to do just that. Bambo gonna windwalk in. He takes a lot of damage, but he was just trying to find the right opportunity to get some right click damage going, as EG looking at treat all they lost is a Wisp, and meanwhile Weaver has died and Juggernaut has bought back, and Omni Slash has already been used. But EG might back off. They will have the God Strength up, so that might be why EG is so hesitant to call off the chase. But keep in mind, Bambo can just teleport himself back to battle whenever he wants. Fear gonna get the Stormbolt off. Dread gets himself hexed, as Demon will find himself in a little bit of trouble. He already used his phase shift as well as his blink. He might get picked off right here, right now. Ice Path is going to use Demon, going to be in a lot of trouble. He's going to get himself disrupted. Demon able to blink on out of there on the back of a phase shift. He's still in the opposing team's base, going to orb out one way. Can he teleport to safety? Oh, Dread, I think the Firefly vision gave him enough vision, but unfortunately was not able to use it because his Flamebreaker's on cooldown. So EG escaped that entire situation, only losing a Wisp in the grand scheme of things. That went sensationally for EG. And this makes the question the draft a little bit more for Rox.KIS. They picked up the Weaver, but they left Puck in the pool, and you can see Puck just owns Weaver's soul. One silence just means Weaver really can't do too much in a team fight. Especially a Puck with the Hex. In conjunction with the Nature's Prophet Hex, there's really honestly not too much BZ can do. I mean, it's just not a good situation for him. Looks like Weaver gonna go for the Desolator. I think in this game it might have actually been better for Weaver to go for BKB rather than Linken's, but you do want to have a bit of mana regen from the Linken Sphere. But for the most part, Linken Sphere really not doing too much for this Weaver. With 210 CS, he has an astounding Linken Sphere and a Mithril Hammer. Really not too impressive. And you can see his net worth has not even passed the 10k mark. Checking out the gold graph, you can see it's heavily in favor of EG. Experience graph favoring EG as well. And you can see Bambo is starting to become a really, really big problem. Now his split push is reaching its peak. He has not yet picked up any DPS items, but he's really, really difficult to kill on the back of his Hex as well as his Shadow Blade. BZZ gonna try to clean up these creeps, trying to get whatever semblance of farm he can possibly get. His Barrier will be able to pick up Bambo. Is there enough damage to keep Bambo locked in place? That gem. Keep in mind, Barrier has not died just yet, as Shaodian will be there. Bambo taking a lot of damage, trying to escape, gonna use the Purge. As Bambo will die, he's going to immediately buy back, going to teleport into Roshan. And was that just a bait by Bambo to try to pick off the Roshan? Keep in mind, I think Puppy did that once in Navi game, but I think Bambo was not anticipating to die in that instance. But Sven gonna pick up the Aegis. Demon gonna find Solo. Solo gonna be in a lot of trouble. Keep in mind, Solo does not have buyback. He's gonna take a number of massive critical hits, as Fear gonna take a lot of damage from the Omni/. Dread is there. Fear gonna die. Barrier will pick off the Nature's Prophet, as Fear is gonna be trapped in a terrible position. Demon is there, got the 4-man Dream Cold, but Fear taking a relentless amount of damage. He will die a second time. And suddenly EG are the ones who are going to be driven away, as Beat is on very, very low HP. He will definitely die, as Demon looking to save himself. Can he do just that? I think he will. I don't think Rox.KIS are going to try to waste their time chasing him, although they are, well, they might just be looking to farm up creeps. That fight went sensationally well for Rox.KIS. They managed to get a really, really solid engagement, and the lasso just really, really well timed. The Omni/. EG put a lot of focus into killing the Juggernaut, and when Juggernaut survived, suddenly EG were lacking a lot of disables, and they were not able to get a sufficient amount of disables to lock down heroes like Barrier, and even the Juggernaut after the Omni/ ended. So really, really, really fortunate turn of events for Rox.KIS, and now they're going to pick up tier 2 themselves. Keep in mind, Bambo died a second time. He already used his buyback, and now Weaver can start picking up some actual damage items. You can see Desolator will be finished relatively soon. Advanced score, gonna have that bracer. May looking to pick up a second set of drums. Juggernaut actually sold his drums since he probably used all of his charges. Gonna go for the AC. Actually finished the Vlad's first, getting himself a bit more damage, as well as amplifying damage to his team, getting a bit of lifesteal, as well as getting a bit of extra pushing power for his groups. Definitely not a bad item under any circumstances. Definitely something every team needs by around the 40-minute mark. And now Weaver is starting to become a bit of a factor. His Desolator allows him to do a good amount of damage. He can pick off supports in the back line, and if Fear can't kill him off, then Weaver will probably just kite him to death. Dread with this Force Staff, going to be able to get a lot more initiations off because he'll just be able to blink in, Force Staff, and get more ranged initiations, or he can blink in, Lasso, and then Force Staff and get more secure initiations if he chooses to do that. Jakiro going to go for Heaven's Halberd, as that will be very, very useful, especially since Sven has used a couple of his BKE charges. He still is around 7 seconds, but if Jakiro can just survive the fight, if he manages to pop that Heaven's Halberd on Sven, then that is a lot of damage that EG's lacking. Or if he even uses it on Nature's Prophet, then Nature's Prophet really has nothing he can do to dispel that. He goes from BKB himself. Bambo did decide to go for the Desolator. I think I like this. I do like it. Even though they do have the DPS on the Sven, I think they realize Sven can be kited, as you saw in the last engagement. Once his BKB is down, you can just lock him in place, and there's really not too much Sven can do, because he doesn't really build into items like a Heart. He wants to get damage, and he wants to get a lot of it, and Heart is really like a 5th or 6th slot for the Sven. So they need some form of backup DPS, and Bambo looking to provide just that. But checking out the golden experience graph, you can see after that last huge engagement, Rox.KIS take a bit of, well, I mean, not going to take a bit advantage. They try to close the gap a little bit, managed to close the gap by around 2k gold and around 8k experience. So really, really well fought, really well fought by Rox.KIS. Meanwhile, Beatus' item progression has halted, but he does have an item finish. He did manage to pick up the Force Staff. That's going to be very, very useful in terms of getting Sven in and out of a fight if he is chain stunned down. Although Sven, I mean, he doesn't build to many HP increasing items. He does have the AC giving him a lot of armor, but in terms of max HP pool, you can just get killed off by somebody like a Barret in the span of a Lasso, if his teammates are there to back him up, of course. But AC will be incredibly important against the Weaver's physical DPS, as well as that Desolator in terms of the Juggernaut Omnislash, because it does do physical damage, and in terms of just helping out his team break the base of Rox.KIS because of that minus armor, as well as increasing his own DPS on the back of that extra bit of attack speed. As the Dread looking to pick off the word, just going to BKB and teleport on out of there, really just did not want to risk it. And meanwhile, noticing that Dread's BKB is down, it looks like EG looking to apply a bit of pressure, as a lot of teams won't really let you get away with using an item so liberally. Although at this point, Dread's BKB was down to 5, so it will be up in about 30 seconds. Keep in mind, Rox.KIS do have the glyph, so they can potentially stall out long enough that Dread's BKB will be back online. Meanwhile, Jo has managed to pick himself up a Ghost Scepter, going to be very useful against the Weaver as well as the Juggernaut again. Puck with this Ghost Scepter, he's had it for quite a while. Nature's Prophet, wonder what he's going to go for next. Orchid could be a solid choice, although it might be a bit overkill. I honestly don't really know. I think MKB could be a solid option in terms of countering Weaver's Butterfly if Weaver does decide to go for a Butterfly, and also MKB in terms of countering the Heaven's Halberd on the Jakiro could be useful. I mean, that might be a bit of a stretch, but it could just be a preventive measure to counter a Weaver Butterfly if he does decide to go for it. Daedalus could be an option as well in terms of getting a bit more DPS. If you don't think the opposing team will get invasion, then Daedalus will help you out a little bit more. Manta could help you if you want to split push, but Bambo really not been able to get the best usage of his split push because it is tricky for Nature's Prophet to push in, especially with a Barret always having the gem online. You know, BZZ just continuing to farm up, trying to make his way towards his next damage item, whether it be a Butterfly, an MKB, a Daedalus, anything like that. As he's going to sell his Ring of Basilius, going to pick up a Demon Edge most likely. and then try to save for buyback. Or he's just gonna sell his Demon Knight or sell his Basilius for the heck of it because he says, fuck Basilius, I don't need that shit anymore. Solo finished his own AC. Solo no buyback, but he is pumping out a lot of DPS. But Dread's gonna find himself hexed up as the healing word has already expired. Fear just gonna pump out a huge critical hit as Omnislash Hard has already been used. Solo trying to get himself out of a terrible situation. Dread gonna buy back, gonna get the lasso going, gonna go on to Fear, but the relocate by Jo, what a tether as Bambo looking to retreat on out of there. Can he do so successfully? I don't know if Rox.KIS have the gem anymore. Barrier was the one holding it, and I don't know if EG did kill it. Beat is gonna take one for the team. He's gonna die. Meanwhile, Demon does have a gem on his own hero, so he's got to be very, very careful. Gonna blink out to safety, although the Shadow Poison will scout him out. Demon just counting every moment that disruption just a little bit too late because the cooldown, of course, was most likely in effect. So EG gonna take that willingly. They traded a Keeper Light for a buyback on the Batrider and a gem. And I think the gem is the biggest deal because now EG can start securing the wards, and now you can see EG placing a lot of wards. That Barrier gem was just giving EG a lot of fits, and now Bambo might be feeling a bit more bold so he can split push a bit easier. Although Barrier just bought himself a second gem, so I guess he just does not care. Although I don't know if that's a second gem or if that's just somebody that... No, it is a second gem. Vanscorp picked it up for him. Meanwhile, Demon's Eye progression has halted completely. We'll see what he goes for. Something like a Yoles or a Force Staff definitely won't be too out of the ordinary for a puck after the Hex. Orchid could be an option as well. It was very, very fortunate that Soul was able to survive that huge engagement as Dread gonna find himself in a bad situation. Once again, here comes the relocate gank. Dread gonna force staff himself away, gonna dodge the stun with his BKB. Not the biggest waste of a BKB because there's already at 5 seconds, but Ichi definitely not gonna be mourning their losses too heavily because all they used was a Wisp relocate, which at this point has such a short cooldown that it does really not matter. So both teams looking to trade punches, but so far EG looks like they have a lot more map control. The creepy algorithm, because Nature's Prophet is such an annoying force, is always on the side of Rox.KIS. And that is going to allow Roshan to be taken a bit more freely for EG, because not only do they have the Nature's Prophet, they also have the dire Roshan advantage. So they don't really have to worry too much. Radiant gonna have to fight in a huge open area if they want to take down this Roshan. But until Roshan responds, Fear just going to be happily farming away. You can see he's picked up a Basher, and that's going to be very, very annoying, as now Weaver has to worry about the Bash as well. And if you manage to get a Bash up onto the Weaver or the Juggernaut, that can just kill you so quickly, because one Bash and one crit will probably mean the end of any hero on the map. Meanwhile, Batrider using the sticky napalm to give himself a bit of vision, scouting for wards because it was nighttime, did not want to use Firefly, so napalm does give you visions. Flame Break gives you vision as well, but napalm, of course, cheaper in terms of mana cost, so you can use it a bit more freely. As Rox.KIS looking to pick off the Roshan, they have the Death giving them a lot of minus armor, but EG, I think they probably know that this is happening. They saw the D-Ward going on, but will they contest it? EG just looking to provide a bit of map pressure on both the top as well as the bottom lanes, but they are going to lose this Roshan uncontestedly, although, to be fair, it wasn't the third Roshan, so Cheese was not yet claimed. But still, Aegis up on the Weaver is going to give him a bit of a security blanket. You can see Weaver did go for the BKB, so he's just prioritizing survival, but now he's going to go for all-out damage. And we're going to have to see what he decides to go for, whether it be Butterfly, Daedalus, or MKB. But at this point, he desperately needs damage because Fear is becoming quite a nuisance as they manage to kill off Juggernaut. And Juggernaut going to be respawning in 85 seconds. That is a long time without the Juggernaut. He doesn't have buyback either, and EG probably just waiting for the buyback, but nope, they're just going to relocate on out of there because they did use a relocate to get that gank going. And with Nature's Prophet, it's such a good combination in the late stages of the game as well, because Nature's Prophet can just teleport in with the Hex, and then the relocate can just immediately follow up. But Rox.KIS, I mean, even though they did lose their Juggernaut, they've got to be feeling a bit relieved because Juggernaut did not have buyback. EG did not know that Juggernaut does not have buyback, of course, since they don't have this observer vision. So they probably assume Juggernaut has buyback. They're just going to back off anyways. But Rox.KIS, all they lost was a Juggernaut, and all he lost was just a little bit of extra gold. Taking a look at the gold as well as experience, you can see Nature's Prophet as well as the Wisp and Sven global factor just able to consistently outfarm Rox.KIS. Experience advantage in favor of the Dire as well. Although at this stage of the game, all it takes is one mistake, and either team can potentially win it. Although EG can make a couple more mistakes because they always have the creep advantage on the back of the Nature's Prophet, and they have a tier 3 down on the bottom lane. So if Rox.KIS make a mistake, EG will just claim barracks. If EG make a mistake, Rox.KIS probably can't get the waves pushing quickly enough that they can claim barracks themselves. So we'll see what Weaver goes for, as I've not checked out Nature's Prophet in quite a bit. He picked up a BKB, so there goes the Halberd disabling that. So now the Halberd's probably going to be used exclusively for Sven, although Puck does hurt a little bit with his right clicks. Meanwhile, Bambo's still holding on to 5k. His net worth is really skyrocketing. You can see he has a full 7k net worth advantage over the Weaver, although Sven has been able to keep up with Nature's Prophet as well, which is quite impressive because Wisp is just giving him so much more map mobility, and this is why Wisp Tiny was such a popular combination. Not because, you know, it does a lot of damage, as Bambo gonna find himself caught off, and he's gonna get himself Omni-Slash. She will definitely die. He's gonna probably use his buyback immediately. No, he's just gonna hold on to it, just saying, alright, start the push, and then if you do push, then I'll buy back. But yeah, Wisp Tiny was such a popular combination, or such a powerful combination, because you can just farm anywhere you want, outfarm the enemy team on the back of Tiny's insane farming speed because of his immense cleave, and then just get yourself to any fight. That was in the Olgerson, but that was definitely a huge factor. As EG applying a lot of pressure to the top lane, but Rox.KIS, you can see they really want Bambo to buy back, and Rox.KIS know that they don't have too much time left on the Aegis, but unfortunately Rox.KIS just cannot push quickly enough, and they're gonna have to retreat. So Bambo gonna be able to save his buyback, which is of the utmost important. You know, if you saw the last game, how crucial Nature's Prophet buyback is towards him in the late game, because if he is without buyback, that will allow the enemy team to just push in, but if he does have buyback, then you really can't push in as aggressively because you can just buy back, push down your other lanes, and then you're just caught in the same old song and dance. Meanwhile, just checking out the items, you can see Jakiro has Heaven's Albert. Shaladin really unable to pick up any items. He's only died twice, but he's just been on relentless support duty. I'm guessing he bought both gems as well. He just does really not have any CS whatsoever. Rox.KIS looking to push out the middle lane. Bambo is going to respawn very soon. You can see him immediately cast Wrath of Nature. We'll see if he teleports to the top lane, or if he's just going to remain in base. Probably going to teleport himself to the top lane, because that lane was pushed out the most. And now it's very difficult for Rox.KIS to actually push. Nature's Prophet still has buyback. Sven most likely has buyback. He has a Basher. If he picks up Abyssal, he might still have enough for buyback. Yeah, he probably will have enough for buyback even if he does die. I'm just checking out the CS. 400 CS on the Nature's Prophet, almost 400 on Sven. EG just farming much more efficiently than Rox.KIS because they have a global lamp. They can farm wherever they want. Meanwhile, Rox.KIS sort of have to group up because if they ever farm on their own, then you can be sure that Bambo will be there with the Wisp to immediately kill off whoever decides to farm in such a terrible location. But the Aegis is going to time for Rox.KIS without any sort of contest. So now Rox.KIS, without the security blanket of the Aegis, Weaver might not be able to get a huge DPS item. As, yeah, he's saving up a lot of gold for buyback. I don't know. It's not looking that good for Rox.KIS, but they can still definitely win this game on the back of some good initiations. It's just so damn hard to push in against the Nature's Prophet, Keeper of the Light, and a Wisp because they're just so global. Meanwhile, Beat is looking to get a real okay gank in. Perhaps here comes the teleport in. Wisp as well as Sven can initiate. Dread gets the lasso up on Fear, holding in place, but Soul is going to be the first one to die in this engage. And Jail gonna probably break the relocate tether stun because Fear is at full HP, full mana. Jail gonna break the tether as he's Fear gonna go in, gonna get a massive cleave off onto Barrett as well. Shout even gonna look to finish off Yola as well. A huge crit, 1200 crit without the God Strength. He was hurting so hard, and this might be the end of the game for Rox.KIS. Barrett does have buyback, but does he want to use it? He doesn't have the lasso of, so his use would be very, very limited. Omni Slash gonna go to work, but really not doing that much damage. AC is just gonna shrug that off any day of the week. Juggernaut not gonna be in a lot of trouble. Fear just gonna approach him saying, "This is why Sven got nerfed in DreamHack, everybody." And Fear gonna go back onto the Rampage, gonna pop his overcharge, or the Wisp gonna pop his overcharge, getting huge cleaves, 1700 cleaves with the God Strength. And this will be the bottom set of racks, and I really don't think Rox.KIS can defend it. Yeah, Juggernaut already uses buyback. Weaver did not have buyback. He's gonna have to sit in the Fallon, as he used all of his gold on the Crystallis. And EG gonna claim the first game in this best of 3 series. So, EG, all they have to do is win one more game, and they will get a guaranteed spot in the winners finals, and they only have to win one more series after that, and they get themselves a slot in TI3. But, hopefully you enjoyed that cast. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace. Oh yeah, I'll bring you probably the rest of the games from this series, and hopefully from the rest of the qualifiers as well. But yeah, I will be updating these relatively frequently because these are becoming very old very quickly. So I know you want to catch them while they're still hot and fresh and right out of the oven. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time for real. Peace.